Paint pouring can create some really cool designs, but some of the downsides to it are that it can feel wasteful with the paint, and it also can be kind of messy to clean up. So today we're going to try a new technique using none other than the plastic wrap in your pantry, and we're going to try and create the same effect, and this might be an alternate that's a little less wasteful and less messy. So I'm going to start out by just dropping dots or dabs of paint directly from the bottle onto the rock. I did base coat this with gesso just because I had to do some smoothing work on it, and I wanted to cover it really well so that it gets the good coverage. I just picked 3 colors that I thought would go really well together, and we're just going to experiment and see how this goes. So next I'm going to take the plastic wrap, just a cut piece of it, and then I'm going to just lay it gently down over the rock and then start moving the paint around with my finger, kind of patting it to make sure that there's full coverage of the base coated part of the rock. I'm also going to grab the edges of the plastic wrap and kind of twist it and turn it a little bit to add some dimension to the way the paint is laying, and then kind of move my finger around some more. I'm just completely experimenting here to see what will happen. And when I peel it off, I muddled the paint a little bit too much. I should have been gentle, but I also used the saran wrap to go ahead and dip a smaller rock in it and get a similar design on it. So again, on less waste. I did get out a straw because there was a couple air bubbles, and so I blew those out and kind of moved the paint around a little bit with the straw as well. But in general, this one, the paint got kind of muddled together a little bit more than I would have liked. So we're just going to keep experimenting. This one I'm going to use 2 matte paints and 2 metallic paints on here just for mixing. I'm adding a little rock underneath because it has a tilt to it and I want it to lay flat while I get all the paint on there. So I'm just using 4 colors, and then I'm going to use the same process and just move the paint around and see what we can come up with. I was a little more careful with this one in not mixing the paints around too much. I wanted to keep some definition in the different colors, and the result was much better than the first one. This one's really pretty, so we'll see how this dries. Then you may remember a while back I did a test on these Ready Pour paints from Apple Barrel. I got them on clearance at Walmart, and I didn't love them for the paint pours, but I was like, they're thinner, and I was really curious what a thinner, more fluid paint would do with this technique. So I'm just dotting the 4 paint colors on with the plastic wrap, and you can see that the paint definitely moves and kind of gives the better effect with the thinner paint. So I think that's my clue, is it's a little harder to do it directly out of the bottle, and we may need to thin these out a bit so that the paint can actually move around, sort of mimicking what happens when you pour it. After seeing that this paint worked better, I decided to experiment with the acrylic pour oil. Now this normally will help create cells in a paint pour that are really cool looking, and I wanted to see if we could create that same look by doing this plastic wrap technique. I only added 1 dot to the green paint because you don't need much. A little goes a long way with this stuff. So total experiment. I'm just getting all the paints on there, and then I'm curious if that green paint will come through and some of the cells will show. So I'm just going to move it around, do the same thing, and then when I do pull the plastic wrap off of this one, I am going to get the straw to blow any bubbles out, move the paint around a little bit, which created some really cool designs, and then I hit it with my heat gun because that also helps the cells come out. Now, Floetrol is one of the things you can add to paint when you're doing paint pours to thin it out, but I decided I was just going to use water. I wanted to come back to those original colors and try and thin them out a little bit to see if we could get a better effect. And I also decided to add the acrylic pour oil to the peach and the white, so the 2 matte colors, and I'm just going to apply them and do the same thing. did not get much with the cells from the acrylic pour oil with this, but I think thinning the paint out and using the straw made a cooler design that's much more like a paint pour. So I was really happy with the way this one turned out. Now that they've dried, this was the very first one we did, my least favorite. Then once thinning the paints out and adding the paint pour oil, even though the cells aren't super visible, the design is much prettier. This one came out really pretty. There's only one problem with it. With the paint not being thinned out, there was one kind of cracked, chunky area that was not so much fun. And then the actual paint pour paints, I think, did the best job. So that is testament. This one's got the most cells in it, but that's testament that you need the thin paint to do this the best. I hope this video gave you a nice little alternate idea to paint pours that's a little less wasteful, a little less messy. Thank you so much for stopping by to watch, and I'll see you next time. Take care.